Hello, dear friends. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 72 years old. Today, I want to share with you a story that changed my life forever. Story about respect, independence, and the power we hold even when others think we've lost it. Asterisk it. Was it Tuesday morning in March when my world turned upside down? I was sitting in my favorite armchair, the one Harold bought me for our 40th anniversary, sipping my morning tea and planning something I'd dreamed about for years. You see, after Harold passed 3 years ago, I promised myself I would visit Ireland, the land of my grandmother's stories. It's a place that lived in my heart through her tales of rolling green hills and ancient castles. I had been planning this trip for months. Every detail was carefully arranged. The flights, the bed and breakfast in County Cork, the guided tours of the cliffs of Moh at my age. You learn to plan things properly because you never know how many chances you'll get. That morning, I called my son Robert to share my excitement. Robert is 45, a successful banker with a lovely wife named Margaret and 2 teenage children. He's always been protective of me, especially since Harold's passing. But what happened next shocked me to my core. Mother, he said, his voice sharp with disapproval. You can't be serious about this Ireland nonsense. Nonsense? I repeated, feeling my heart sink. Robert, this is something I've wanted to do my entire life. You're 72 years old. You can't just go gallivanting around foreign countries by yourself. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you get lost? His words stung worse than I expected. I've been taking care of myself just fine. Thank you very much. That's different, Mother. You're in your own home, in your own neighborhood. Ireland is thousands of miles away. If you don't know anyone there, you're too old for this kind of adventure. Too old. Those 2 words echoed in my mind long after we hung up. Too old for adventure. Too old for dreams. Too old to live. But let me tell you something, if you're watching this and you're over 60. I want you to remember that age is just a number, and dreams don't have expiration dates. If this story resonates with you, please consider joining our community by subscribing to hear more stories of triumph and resilience. Robert's reaction made me question everything. Had I really become too old to pursue my dreams? Was I being foolish thinking I could travel alone at my age? These doubts crept into my mind like unwelcome visitors, but something deep inside me rebelled against them. The secretary during the war, who managed our household finances for 50 years, who raised 3 children, who cared for my ailing mother-in-law for a decade, and who nursed Harold through his final illness. I had been strong, capable, and independent my entire life. Why should that change now? 3 days after that phone call, Robert arrived at my house unannounced. He found me at my kitchen table with travel brochures spread out before me, still planning my Irish adventure despite his disapproval. Mother. We need to talk, he said, settling into the chair across from me with that serious expression he'd worn since childhood. When he thought he knew better than everyone else, if it's about Ireland, Robert, my mind is made up. It's not just about Ireland. Margaret and I have been talking, and we think it's time you considered moving into one of those nice senior communities. Sunset Manor has an excellent reputation, and you'd have people to look after you. I stared at him, hardly believing what I was hearing. You want to put me in a nursing home? It's not a nursing home, Mother. It's a senior living community. You'd have your own apartment, but there would be staff available if you needed help. It would give us all peace of mind. Peace of mind for whom, Robert? Because I have perfect peace of mind right here in the home your father and I built together. You're being stubborn. I'm being independent. There's a difference. Our conversation grew heated. Robert couldn't understand why I was being so difficult about what he saw as reasonable concerns. I couldn't understand how my own son could see me as nothing more than a liability. A problem to be managed rather than a person to be respected. Asterisk after he left that day. I sat in my living room surrounded by 60 years of memories, photographs, books, the quilt my mother made, Harold's favorite coffee mug that I still couldn't bring myself to put away. I realized that to Robert I had become invisible. Dorothy the person, but Dorothy the burden. Asterisk that night. I made a decision that would change everything. Asterisk the next morning, I called Robert. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, I began. And I could hear the relief in his voice. Asterisk, I'm so glad, Mother. I knew you'd come around. Asterisk, I've decided you're right about one thing, Nye. Shouldn't make any major decisions without considering how they affect the family. Asterisk, exactly. Asterisk, so I'm canceling my trip to Ireland. Asterisk, that's wonderful news. I'll call Margaret right away. And asterisk, I'm not finished. Robert. Something in my tone must have warned him because he fell silent. I'm also canceling something else. Do you remember that trip to Hawaii you and Margaret have been planning for your anniversary? Asterisk, what does that have to do with anything? Asterisk, the trip I'm paying for as your anniversary gift. The one that costs $8,000. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Mother, you can't be serious. Asterisk, oh, but I am. You see, Robert, if I'm too old to make my own decisions about travel, then perhaps I'm also too old to make decisions about how to spend my money. Maybe you should be the one making financial decisions for me. Asterisk, that's not the same thing at all. Asterisk, isn't it? You're telling me I lack the judgment to plan a simple trip to Ireland, but somehow I have the judgment to spend $8,000 on your vacation. Asterisk, if you're enjoying this story of standing up for yourself and setting boundaries, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and join our community of strong, independent individuals who refuse to be defined by their age. Asterisk Robert sputtered and protested, but I had made my point. The conversation ended with him promising to think about his position on my Ireland trip. But I knew something had fundamentally changed between us. Asterisk 2 weeks later, something wonderful happened. My daughter Patricia called from California. Patricia is my youngest, and she's always been the most supportive of my children. Asterisk Mom, Robert told me about Ireland. Think it's wonderful that you want to go. Asterisk, do you really think so, dear? Asterisk, absolutely. In fact, I've been thinking. Tom, and I could use a little adventure ourselves. What would you think about some company on your trip? Asterisk, I nearly cried with happiness. Patricia and her husband Tom were planning to join me for the first week of my Irish adventure. Suddenly, I wasn't a foolish old woman planning a dangerous solo journey. I was a grandmother sharing an experience with her family. Asterisk. When I called Robert to tell him about Patricia's involvement, his tune changed immediately. Asterisk, well, if Patricia and Tom are going with you, that's different, he said, as if my capability had somehow magically increased because younger people would be present. Asterisk, Robert. I said gently, I'm the same person I was 2 weeks ago. The only thing that's changed is your perception. Asterisk. But I had learned something important through this entire ordeal. Sometimes, the people who love us most can become our biggest obstacles, not because they want to hurt us, but because they're afraid of losing us. Robert's fear of something happening to me had blinded him to who I still wasn't capable. Intelligent woman with dreams and desires that didn't disappear on my 70th birthday. Asterisk, the Ireland trip was everything I had hoped it would be and more. Patricia and Tom joined me for the first week, and then I continued on my own for another 10 days. I walked the cliffs of Maher, kissed the Blarney Stone, listened to traditional music in Dublin pubs, and traced my grandmother's stories through the countryside of County Cork. Asterisk, but the most important part of the journey wasn't what I saw or did, was what I proved to myself and to my family. I proved that age doesn't define capability, that dreams don't have expiration dates, and that independence isn't something you lose just because you've lived a long life. Asterisk on my last night in Ireland. I sat in a small pub in Galway, listening to an elderly man play the fiddle. He was at least 80, his fingers gnarled with arthritis. But when he played, the music that came from that instrument was pure magic. After his set, I approached him. "That was beautiful," I said. He smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Ah, but you? Haven't heard anything yet, love?" "Wait until tomorrow nighttime playing at the festival in Dingle. Been playing there for 60 years and I'm not stopping now." Asterisk, 60 years and he wasn't stopping. In that moment, I understood that the only thing that makes us too old is accepting that we are. Asterisk when I returned home. Robert was waiting for me at the airport. He looked nervous, uncertain the way he used to look as a child when he wasn't sure if he was in trouble. Asterisk, how was your trip, Mother? It was perfect, I said, and I meant it. Over the following weeks, our relationship slowly healed. Robert began to see me differently, not as a fragile old woman who needed protection, but as his mother who had raised him to be strong and independent. Qualities that didn't disappear with age. Asterisk, but the real change came 6 months later. Robert called me on a Thursday evening, excitement in his voice. Asterisk, Mother, I have a proposition for you. "Oh, Margaret and I have been talking, and we want to take you to Scotland for your 73rd birthday. Would you like that?" Asterisk, I smiled, remembering the woman I had been 6 months earlier, sitting in my kitchen with those Ireland brochures. Doubting my own capabilities because my own son had made me feel too old to dream. Asterisk, I'd love that, Robert. But I have one condition. Asterisk, what's that? Asterisk, I plan the itinerary. After all, I've become quite the experienced traveler. Asterisk, he laughed for the first time in years. It's a deal, Mom. Asterisk for those of you who have made it this far in my story. I hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel where we share more stories of courage, independence, and the beauty of living life on your own terms. Regardless of age, asterisk. The Scotland trip with Robert and Margaret was wonderful, but it was different from Ireland. In Ireland, I had proven something to myself. In Scotland, I was simply enjoying the fruits of that proof. Knowledge that I was still Dorothy, still capable, still worthy of adventure and dreams. Asterisk, since then, I've traveled to Italy, taken a painting class, learned to use a computer, and started volunteering at the local literacy center. Robert no longer questions my decisions or treats me like a fragile ornament. Instead, he asks for my advice, includes me in family decisions, and most importantly, he sees me, asterisk, the letter that changed everything came a year after my Ireland trip. Robert had written it by hand, something he hadn't done since childhood. Thank you. Notes. Asterisk, dear Mom, it began. I owe you an apology. I let my fear of losing you make me forget who you are, one of the strongest, most capable people I know. When I said you were too old to travel to Ireland, I wasn't protecting you. I was trying to keep you small and safe because I was afraid of losing you the way we lost Dad. But Dad wouldn't have wanted me to put you in a cage, even a golden one. He would have wanted you to live, to dream, to adventure. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that loving someone means supporting their dreams, not limiting them. Thank you for teaching me that lesson, even at 46 years old. Your loving son, Robert. Asterisk, that letter hangs framed in my kitchen now, next to the photographs from Ireland, Scotland, and Italy. It reminds me every day that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to pursue your dreams, and to teach the people you love that age is just a number. Asterisk, I'm 74 now, and I'm planning a trip to New Zealand. Robert helped me research the best tours, and Patricia is thinking of joining me for part of the journey. My grandson Michael, who's 22, asked if he could come along because he's never met anyone as adventurous as Grandma Dorothy. Asterisk, sometimes I think about that morning when Robert called me too old to travel, and I'm grateful for it. Not because he was right, but because he was wrong. And in proving him wrong, I rediscovered who I was. I rediscovered Dorothy, not the widow, not the senior citizen, not the mother who needed protection, but Dorothy the dreamer, the adventurer, the woman who refuses to let age define her limitations. Asterisk to everyone watching this, especially those of you who might be facing similar challenges with family members who think they know what's best for you. Remember that respect isn't something you lose with age, it's something you maintain by demanding it. Dreams don't have expiration dates. And independence isn't a privilege of youth. As to right of the living, asterisk age may slow our steps, but it doesn't have to diminish our spirits. We've earned our wisdom, we've earned our independence, and we've earned the right to live our lives on our own terms. Don't let anyone, even those who love you, convince you otherwise. Asterisk my next adventure starts in 3 months. Where will yours begin? Asterisk, thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart or inspired you to reclaim your own dreams, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe to join our community of ageless dreamers and adventurers. Asterisk,